My name is Howard, bringing you all the latest and greatest content each and every day. Today, it's Monday, so you know what that means. It's time for Mighty Mind Monday and our weekly talk about philosophy. This week, we're going to be talking about C.S. Lewis and one of his most famous works, Mere Christianity. Most of you probably know C.S. Lewis for his Chronicles of Narnia series, the first of which was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Growing up, Lewis was a strong atheist who rejected religion at all costs, any chance he could, which is when he actually wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. Later in his life, however, he converted and became a very devout Christian. His work, Mere Christianity, was his most popular work, and in it he gave a very good argument for Christianity and why it is necessarily true. It is an easy-to-read piece because of its clever use of language and its brevity. In it, he tried to preach of moral realism and Christian salvation, while he also tried to defeat relativism, materialism, and yes, atheism. There are three main arguments that C.S. Lewis presented. The first was the argument in favor of a moral law. The second was the fact that there is a power behind that moral law. And the third was the argument that Christianity is the only religion that faces all of the tests and that faces all the facts. The first argument, which was the argument for the moral law, was that he introduced this with the ideas of moral discourse and human behavior. He explains this argument by saying that people are all intrinsically, know what is right and wrong, meaning that there is an independent standard of moral behavior. In other words, a moral law, also known as the natural law. Lewis continues this argument by citing there are so many similarities between different cultures, meaning that if you get a person from, let's say, America and someone from, Japan, many of their moral beliefs line up pretty well, meaning that things like murder is obviously wrong in both places, stealing is obviously wrong, so on and so forth. Now, let's go into the argument for there being a power behind the moral law. In other words, that there is a God, or at least that's what it is in the Christian sense, which he will go into later. Lewis stated that there must be something that created these moral laws. He stated that morality isn't a product of human minds due to the fact that if it were, morality would be far more selfish. Also, if morality were a human construct, then Lewis stated that there wouldn't be such a feeling of obligation to oblige by it, meaning that if somebody had simply just created the moral law and that there wasn't an actual concrete reason behind its creation by a higher being, then nobody would actually follow it because it's just another set of laws. And if you break it, you wouldn't feel as bad, and your conscience wouldn't weigh down on you as much. The third argument was for Christianity itself, meaning that yes, sure, there is a being that created the natural law, but his third argument was that the Christian God is the best explanation for this, since the Christian God is supremely good, and only a supremely good God could create such a good moral law. Other ideas, such as good spirits and dualism, don't make sense to him, as he explains, since it is clearly illogical. He states that evil is simply a perversion of what is good, and not an entity in and of itself. By saying this, he goes against dualism especially, which is that there is a good spirit and a bad spirit, and he stated that there cannot be an independent bad spirit due to the fact that it had to be made by something, and also due to the fact that the bad spirit in and of itself has to believe that it is good for it to actually do its job. In other words, for it to actually believe in what it is doing, it has to believe that what it is doing is good. And if it has just even the inkling of good and wrong, then evil is just a perversion of what is good, and what is good is, as Lewis stated, God himself. Lewis even made an argument about Jesus, saying that he was one of three things: a liar, a lunatic, or the Lord incarnate himself. Lewis stated that Jesus was clearly not a lunatic due to the fact that people probably would have been able to see through his ruse if he were indeed a lunatic. And also, you could easily tell through the different sacred scriptures that Jesus definitely knew what he was talking about and he was in his right mind. Also, you cannot think of Jesus as a liar and as a good person, because all of his teachings were good. However, if he was a liar, then you can't think of him as a good person. And as a result, Jesus has to be what he said he was, the Lord incarnate himself, or the Son of God. Because if he wasn't, then it just wouldn't make sense, because he obviously wasn't a lunatic, and he cannot be both a liar and a person who preaches good things. Lewis's thoughts are definitely thought-provoking and reaffirmed my faith last year and this year as I delved into his works more and more. As you guys can tell, Lewis creates very sound arguments based on logic and reason, and due to those two facts, it definitely appealed to me, since logic and reason, as well as stats and facts, definitely appeal to me more than simple thought experiments. Thanks. I hope you all enjoyed this video. And as always, don't go change it.